Well, the video today is on man's best friend. I heard a comedian one time ask why it was that a dog was considered to be man's best friend and not his wife. And he said, just lock both in your car trunk for an hour, and then when you come back to let them out, see which one's happy to see you. Well, I don't know that that's particularly a good idea, but there is just something about dogs that just seems like they're always happy. I realize there's some mean ones out there, but for the most part, dogs are happy-go-lucky, and it seems like they're always happy to see their owners. When I was, I don't know, maybe 3, 4, 5 years old, my brother got a puppy for his birthday, and we named him Snuffy. And it was every bit as much of a present for me as it was for my brother, even though it was his birthday, because we both got to enjoy that dog. And that dog was just always there growing up. I've got a picture of me and my brother being pushed on a sled by my mom on a hill in Colorado, and there Snuffy is right beside us. And I can remember him chasing us down that hill and just wagging his tail and barking all the way. We had a tall slide in Colorado, and I can remember climbing up to the top of that slide and sliding down, and there Snuffy was at the bottom, there to greet you, to jump all over you, to lick you, as if he hadn't seen you for days. And then you'd get off and you'd get him loose, and you'd run back around and slide again. He'd do the same thing over and over and over until finally you got tired and had to go in. When we moved to Washington State, we moved in close to some woods, and by that time, I guess we were probably taking turns with the chores of feeding the dog, but I can remember very specifically the aggravation of feeding this dog, especially in Seattle. He was a big dog, probably weighed 50 or 60 pounds, so he took nearly an entire coffee can of food, and we would fill up that coffee can of food with, I think it was gravy train, and it was a dry food, but if you put hot water in it, it made its own gravy. And so, but you had to drain the excess water off, and so I can remember going out with that coffee can full of food, taking to the dog, who was always starving to death, and trying to drain it out enough to where I could give him his meal, with him all wet and nasty and all over me trying to get to his food. There were times that dog was in absolute pain. My dad talked about a time right after we moved to Washington, and we didn't have a fence in the backyard, lived right next door to some woods, and he knew that we had to get something for this dog. He couldn't stay on a chain his whole life, and so he started to build a fence out of a stack of 1x1s that somebody had left there at the house, I guess, for that purpose. Now, 1x1s are not a very good fence material, but anyway, Dad said he built that fence, and he said Snuffy just sat there on his chain and watched him the whole time. It was almost as if he was figuring things out. And Dad said finally when he got the fence completed, he let the dog go. And Snuffy just got off, and when he got off the chain, he just backed up a step or two, and he ran right at that fence and through the fence. He didn't jump the fence. He didn't shoot through the fence. He ran through that fence. Kind of made Dad a little bit mad. Well, Dad didn't even put a gate on that fence, as I recall, and there was another time where he was on a business trip. He worked for Metropolitan Life as a real estate correspondent. So he did a lot of traveling to look at different real estate properties that would be used as investment, income-producing properties to provide the money from the policies that the life insurance holders had. And so he was off on a trip one time. He got back really late. I think his plane came in later than was expected, and we all went to bed. And Mom forgot and latched the front door from the inside. And so when Dad got home, he didn't want to wake up the whole house by ringing the doorbell. So he thought, well, I'll just hop the fence and come in the back, where I've got a key to that door too, and there's no latch. And so he did that, without realizing that Snuffy wouldn't recognize him in the pitch black coming over that fence. And so while it took Dad a little bit to climb over that fence, it was no time at all before he hopped back over to the other side and had to wake up the entire house, because Snuffy wasn't about to let that strange man into his backyard. Well, where Snuffy really proved his worth was one time when my granny was visiting from Texas. She had lived in the panhandle of Texas all of her life, except for a short period of time when they moved to California during the Great Depression to work in the fruit fields back then. But anyway, she was a West Texas woman, and she had come, and I don't know if it was a Saturday, but anyway, Mom and Dad and Steve and I were all gone for something, and she stayed home and watched my little sister, who was probably, just getting around at that point, probably 2 or 3 years old. And while Granny was used to watching kids, she had raised 6 of her own and then took on another one, a cousin whose parents had passed away, so she had raised a lot of kids. She was used to looking after them, but she wasn't used to Washington. And so when Nancy wandered off and Granny went to go look for her, all she could see were the woods. And so I don't know if she panicked or what she did, but the only thing she could think of was to let Snuffy out of the backyard to go look for her. Now, if I'd have been there, I would have advised against it, because I knew that once Snuffy got out the backyard, he was gone. And so, anyway, I guess she went through the garage and opened the door and let him out. And she said, "Go find Nancy." And that dog did. He went into the woods, and sometime later he came out of those woods with my little sister. And Granny was pretty happy. And when we got home and Mom and Dad found out what had happened, they were pretty happy, really happy with Snuffy. He was a hero. He was a good boy. Thought about that a lot. We've had several dogs through the years, and I've thought about the foresight of God. When he was creating this world, he created all sorts of useful things, all sorts of good things. Some things apparently just for our enjoyment. And at that time, he created dogs. Now, I don't know that they were domesticated at that time. I'm not trying to suggest that, but he knew they would be at some point. And he had the foresight to see that these animals would be useful for farmers and ranchers as work dogs, and for hunters to go along with, but not just that, but that they would be very useful just as companions. They seem to cheer people up just by being around a good dog, don't they? Isn't it amazing that the creator of the universe, at the outset of his creation, thought so far in advance to create dogs so that we could enjoy them thousands of years later? Isn't God good? And in his creation magnificent? And one of the really neat parts about his creation are good dogs. Well, that's it for today. I wanted to have something a little bit lighter hearted than I've been doing recently. I hope you enjoyed that story. I sure enjoyed the memory of our dog Snuffy. And so hopefully it was something that you get something out of. But thank you for listening today. I hope we'll see you again tomorrow.